kama pemio, oya riwo, Uriki oya, woman that grows a beard in a time of war, strong wind that tears down trees from their tops, she that threatens to rain by the cloudy weather and never rains. Out of the 16 forces competing to have Shango as their husband, Oya won Shango as husband by virtue of her charm of personality, her grace, and her elegance of movement. Oya that wears a cloth of fire, as if the fire were a dress. Oya riwo, oya wo. Oya riwo, oya. Oya kama pemio, oya riwo, oya. Oya riwo, oya wo. Oya riwo, oya. Oya kama pemio, oya riwo, oya. Where the people of earth have come from is where they are returning to. What are tears for? What is sorrow for? What is raising oneself up and down for? What is fasting for? He who sends one to come is he who is calling him to return home. Oya riwo, oya wo. Oya riwo, oya. Oya kama pemio, oya riwo, oya.
Thank you, Michael. So beautiful. Michael, call us all into the space. Let's hear your beautiful voice.
Erude, erude mo juba malo, erude mo juba malo yo, erude, erude mo juba malo, erude mo juba malo yo, erude, erude mo juba malo, erude. Your servant has come to your shrine. Your devotee has arrived. I pay homage, I leave. Your devotee has come. I come to pay homage to secure benefits. I leave. Ashe.
Ashe. All right, call us in, Michael, by name.
We are going to call in. At this point, we first have our host. We first have Ofelia and Rosanna, all the way across the United States of America. And of course, we have Annie Lanzillotto. We have Molly Garfinkel of City Law. And of course, we have Steve Zeitlin. Good day to all of you and welcome to the space. We have come for a blessing.
Yes. Okay, Ofelia, let's hear the ceremony of arrival. And Eva, behind the scenes, please come in as well. Eva, without Eva, none of the magic would happen. There she is. Oh, we can't hear you, Ofelia.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I want to call for all of us first to acknowledge the land, this land of the first people whose land it belongs to. In our city in Los Angeles, it's the Tongva. The Tongva, honoring not only the land, but the people, the present and the past and the future. They're still here. And so we ask Creator to help us keep honoring not only the land and to be good stewards for this land that they have honored from the very beginning. And that we call on all the people today who have had losses in this past year, people who lost jobs, who lost connections, but especially who lost loved ones. And we want to show gratitude. This whole evening is dedicated to the gratitude that we're still here, that we owe so much to our, not only our resilience, but to our Creator. And from this we learn to continue the connections we have made, and the resilience and the blessing that we have with each other. And may it continue and keep us in harmony and in goodwill.
Thank you, Ofelia. Thank you. Let's all take a deep breath, everyone in the house, to thank you for being here now. And Eva, why don't you just spotlight Molly? Some of us can turn off our cameras, but not the Esparzas, and Michael, you stay in. And let's hear Molly's beautiful contextualization of why we are here we are.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening for Tell Me a Story, a City Lore Salon with Annie Lanzillotto, and tonight's very special guests, Ofelia Esparza, Rosanna Esparza Ahrens, and Michael Manswell. Tonight's conversation focuses on ritual, resistance, and remembrance, and it marks roughly 1 year since we began the Tell Me a Story Salon. In a way, this program has become a ritual for us, one that has helped to sustain us and give us space and community to remember and resist together, even though we've not yet been able to gather in physical space at the City Lore Gallery. And we want to take a moment to acknowledge and respect that the physical place where City Lore is located, where I'm tuning in from tonight, is Manswell land. We recognize the land as an expression of gratitude to and appreciation of those on whose territory we reside. It is critical to understand the history that has brought us to this land and to understand our place within that history. We acknowledge that colonialism is a current ongoing process and that we require mindfulness of our present participation and consideration of our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. We thank and honor the Indigenous people and communities who have and continue to live and work here, who participate in ritual and remember and resist here. These issues are intensely resonant for this evening's participants, and I'd like to introduce them to you now. Our beloved host, Annie Lanzillotto, has collaborated with City Lore for over 20 years and is one of our favorite New York voices. You can take Annie home through her books, audiobooks, albums, podcasts, and performance videos. Annie is the artistic director of Street Cry Incorporated and mentors writers and performers. Ofelia Esparza is a Chicana artist, educator, Altarista, mother of 9, and an NEA National Heritage Fellow. Ofelia grew up making home altars with her mother in the tradition of her grandmother, great-grandmother, and great-great-grandmother, and since 1979 has turned private devotional practice into large-scale community social healing actions. She is a cultural ambassador of her East Los Angeles community through her altar-making practice. Rosanna Esparza Ahrens is a graphic designer, Chicana altarista, and daughter of Ofelia Esparza. She defines altars as bridges for generations. Rosanna is the director of East Los Angeles-based Tonali Studio, a place of creative wellness, which she runs with Ofelia. Rosanna carries ancestral stories. She links devotional practice to the Chicana movement for social justice and healing by sharing sacred, ancient, and indigenous practice that encourage cultural fortitude. And Michael Manswell is an award-winning dancer, choreographer, and teaching artist who has performed and toured across North America, Europe, and the Caribbean. He is the artistic director of Something Positive Incorporated, a nonprofit arts and education organization dedicated to highlighting the art and culture of the African diaspora and its cross-cultural influences to performances and education. He's also the creative director of Juve Fest Collective, which focuses on bringing together, showcasing, and exposing artistic talents from the African Caribbean diaspora. An avid folklorist and Orisha devotee in the Yoruba religion, Michael is a creator of celebrations of emancipation. He regularly presents, lectures, and workshops in dance, music, and traditional religious practice. And in addition to being artists in common, tonight's presenters are community advocates, organizers, empowerers, and healers. It is City Lore's deep honor to collaborate with everyone on tonight's program. Annie, I'm going to call you into the space. Where are you?
Eccomi qua. What a group we have tonight. Look at
I
this.
should say. Yep. It's
Let
wonderful.
all the portals open. Be prepared. Buckle in, everybody.
All right, Andy, I'm gonna send this over to you now. It's gonna be your turn. Ready? Spotlight you. I'm gonna toss the ball.
Okay, hold it.
Ready?
Take it easy. I just got out of surgery. Nice, easy
All right,
pop flow. Okay. All right, I got it.
All right, great.
Thanks, Molly.
welcome.
We gotta feed the meter.
Oh yeah, sorry. Hold on. Let me see if I have a
Lend me a quarter, will you?
Ready?
Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you. See, I could even borrow money virtually. All right, let's feed the meter. The almighty hour. Okay. Thank you for this hour. Let's have the best hour of our lives right now.
Yes.
And now for your listening pleasure. Special shout out to my paisans out there. And the ancestors who got rid of the poison in their body through this. The music is the cure. The music is the medicine. It never ends. It goes on in rounds and rounds. And that's the tarantelle. And it's a dance to do in community to move the poison of the spider's bite around the body. Because if the poison stays in one place, you're in trouble. So you have to move the poison. And I need to move the poison. Now, I got to tell you, about a month ago, my body started shutting down. I couldn't eat. And really, my whole culture as a Bronx Italian is to eat. That really is what we do at festivals. That's what we do. We dive into sausage heroes like there's no tomorrow. And even the night my mother died, Rachele Claire Petruzzelli, well, in Italian you'd say Chiara, Rachele Chiara Petruzzelli Lanzillotto. The night she died, my very brilliant and intuitive niece. In my family, the women really have the brains, and you can't get nothing by them. Street smart, intuitive, brilliant. My niece Nicole said, let's go to the feast of Mount Carmel. Let's go to the Giglio Festival in Williamsburg. Now, on July 16th, 1929, my mother was 2.5, and she fell out the window in the Bronx. And she fell 2 stories and a 3rd story into the concrete alleyway sub-basement, and she survived. And through miraculous surgery at Bellevue, that was very advanced surgery for the time, she was learning to walk again. And she had to learn to walk again, even when she was 6 years old, she needed more surgery. And this went on through her teenage years. July 16th happens to be La Festa della Madonna di Carmine, the feast of the Lady of Mount Carmel. And so my mother, this is her scapula she wore, and I'll wear it always. And the scapula is because the Madonna made a visitation on a hill in Palestine. And the message was, every visitation has a message. The message was, wear the scapula and your soul will be okay. You know, you'll come to me. And she always gave these scapulas out in her life. So about a month ago, when my body started shutting down, I really did an ancient Greek ritual without knowing it. I learned the tarantella. For some reason, I just said, I have to learn it. Now, I didn't grow up with it. We didn't do this dance together. We didn't get the poison out together. We need to. I need to. This year's taught me how much I need community and how much I need community ritual and release together, to cry together, to dance together, to sing together, to pray together, to cover our body in ritual wear or holy metals and whatever it is, to make altars. Now, Ofelia, remember, my father's dying words to me, because he was a US Marine in World War II. He said, don't decorate my grave. Now, he knew my penchant to make decorations, altars as tributes. He says, all soldiers' graves should look the same. There should be no distinction. So when my mom died, she fell on the Saint's Day and she died the week of the Saint on July 13th. So my niece said, we have to go to the feast. And so after 18 hours of standing by my mother in vigil and putting A&D ointment on her cheeks because the oxygen was very drying, I went into the Basilica of La Madonna di Carmine, and I went into the room of saints. And there's something about being with thousands of people crowding into a room of statues, all talking to the statues like they're people. They're like, Rocco, come on, what kind of a year we had? San Rocco, San Anthony, I got this pain, you got to take care of it. And there's this banter and argument with the statues of saints. And so I stood before the Pietà. The Pietà, Jesus is held by his mother. And his head is off to the right. Just like my mom, when she died, her head was off to the right. And I reached in my pocket and there was the A&D ointment. And so I put it on the statue on Jesus's lips. And my niece just intuited, here's something else she does. When there's crisis in the family, Nicole will call me and she'll just go, do, 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 do. Now, like I said, we didn't grow up with this ancient practice, but somewhere in her, she knows this is a way to get the toxin out. This is a way to release. This is a way to regain some happiness, like a dancing on the grave kind of happiness, the dance of the macabre. So I began to do ritual baths with salts. It looks like I'm getting into a broth. I put in big sticks of rosemary my friends send me from the Pacific Northwest, salts, lavender, looks like a broth. And I started fasting on liquids, and I was playing the tarantella. The ancient Greeks, this is what they did. They put you to sleep in the temple of sleep called the incubatio. And they asked you, when they put you to sleep with opium, in Sloan Kettering, I had fentanyl, I had propofol, they put me to sleep good too. And when you woke up from the dream, they said, now you have to get on stage and tell the dream. Just like Black Elk in Black Elk Speaks. From the fever, from the delirium, you tell the dream. Just like in Ethiopia, the king Lalibela was bitten by a bee and had such a fever, and he woke up with this vision, we have to make Jerusalem right here in Ethiopia. When I woke up from the anesthesia, I saw fields of orange flowers, wild flowers. And then the nurse was right there to wake me up. But I said, I just wanted to be in those wild flowers in that liminal space for a little bit. And this poem came to me this week. I'm going to read it to you. Why do fevers spike at night when no one is around? Why do fevers spike at night when my feet are off the ground? Why do fevers climb every thermometer rung while life hangs in the balance, infection pocket in the lung? Why do fevers spike the night when silence is the sound that echoes thoughts and ricochets round and round? And why do fevers spike the night? The body waits to shake, to roll, the heart to break, the sweat to zest, the soul to surf the wave of breath to and fro. And why do fevers spike the night, aflame and all aglow? Where's my fire department to keep my fever low? Why do fevers spike and bring delirious dreams of orange wild flowers, falling open their insides out, releasing all their powers? Don't wake me too fast or I'll miss the dream of wild tulip cantaloupe petals waving in the breeze. but bounce me back for another round of walking earth, please. Why do fevers spike the night when the sky seems so serene, home calling me? Well, I tell you, it's 1 week from surgery today, and I couldn't be more happy to get on the stage on my street corner with this group of spiritual people here. We got the Altaristas, the Orisha. Forget about it. We got everybody. Besides the audience, we got the spirits in the house because they brought all their ancestors and the unborn, everybody. So my role tonight's going to be the interrupter, because once these three start talking, and Ofelia has to get on a plane tonight because her sister-in-law is turning 100. So she has to fly with Rosanna to Chicago to see Aunt Mickey. So I have to keep the show moving. So if I interrupt, that's what I'm going to do. So be prepared. I love you all, and I give you Ofelia Esparza, Rosanna Esparza Ahrens, and Michael Manswell. Let's do it. And let's start with the Esparzas. Tell everyone what is an altarista, and let's see some of these altars that you've built.
Shall I start? Mm-hmm. Well, the name altarista, I think, was a coined word by my friend, but I build altars. For many years now, I started learning that from my mother, who held altars at home for different occasions. So I just, many years I watched her, and then I would participate. And she had 4 altars at home, and they were all religiously generated from Christmas time, the Nacimiento. That was the most, she was best known for that, and it was a big operation. And so I think my altars today that I do for Dia de Muertos, and many of the altars I do, are really influenced by those nacimientos that had lots of items. It was the living room full at the window. The neighbors would come, and she would always have ceremony, singing and food. And it was, that was her passion. And she learned that from her great grandmother who raised her. And so, and my grandfather had songs that they performed in the village in pageants, and the base of all this was the Nacimiento, the nativity scene. And then the other altar that I remember so beautifully was the Holy Saturday. They call it Sábado de Gloria, Glorious Saturday. And it was, we lived in an adobe house in East LA where I was born. And she had a garden. She grew food and flowers, and the flowers from that garden were all white for that altar. And it was, for me, it was, I looked forward to waking up in the morning on Holy Saturday to see this altar. And it had gladiolas, daisies, calla lilies, and I think they were mums. And so this was one of the highlights for me of the Easter week, was my mother's altar, not so much the church's. And then the other altar, my mother was Guadalupe. And so, of course, her namesake, she was named after Our Lady of Guadalupe. And Our Lady of Guadalupe was, like you've heard of main man, well, she was main woman. And she was invoked for every occasion, for our leaving to school, for traveling, for she was a household word in my family. So my mother it was very important for us to participate in the Lady Guadalupe procession in East LA, which has been going on for over 80 years. And she would make these wreaths and crosses and garlands from her garden. And then Dia de Muertos, which ironically, it was very small compared to the other altars she made all year. But what the highlight for me for Day of the Dead was walking to the cemetery. East LA is has 6 cemeteries: a Chinese cemetery, 2 Jewish cemeteries, a Catholic cemetery, a Serbian and a Croatian cemetery,
Wow.
because it was initially the outskirts of the city of Los Angeles. And we would walk to the cemetery, the Catholic cemetery, Calvary, and my mother would pack a lunch with my aunt, and we would walk there. And then, well, my cousins and I played, and we were admonished, do not ever step on a headstone. We'd jump the headstones and play, and then they'd call us, come here. And they had decorated a gravesite with pebbles or whatever it was they brought, and flowers from her garden. And it was interesting because the person who was buried there was not really a relative, and I didn't know who it was. And at that time in the early 30s, my mother didn't have a close relative buried in East LA yet, but it was a paisano, someone from her village. And so that connection connected her to her family and the stories that go with it. And so that's what has kept me all these years of remembering my mother's ritual, of remembering our ancestors, our family. And that was the main point of celebrating Dia de Muertos. She was so adamant that we always remember her grandmother and all the stories that went by. And so those stories were repeated for all these altars every year. And so I got to know my great-grandmother, Mama Pola, almost intimately through my mother's stories, although I never met her. Well, I thought I never met her, but you'll see a photograph of her holding me when I'm about 3 months old, before she went back to Mexico during the repatriations of Mexicans in the 1932 to 1935, I believe. And you see it on the right side. And my Mama Pola was a small native Indian woman from the Purepecha, from Guanimaro, Guanajuato. And my brother behind me, my hero, 6 years older. And then on the other side is my mother in Chicago, in her Sunday best. Those chickens, I think, were prepared to make her famous mole, a traditional indigenous sauce that is to chuparse los dedos, to suck on your fingers. It's so good. And so all this background is something that has prepared me for this work that I'm doing today, that I never thought would be so widely known and spread. And I owe it to my mother and all the things, her creative spirit and her resourcefulness. And then our ancestors that's why we're here. Their strength through all these wars and obstacles and migrations that were sustained, and the stories and carried on, that I'm passing on to my children. I have 9 children, and Rosanna is one of them. And she could tell you more about it. She was raised with my mother.
Yeah. Yeah, this is my mom, and she is the mother of 9. I'm the middle child, and she's got lots of grandkids and great grandkids too. But here we are talking about altar making and traditional practices, and really about resilience, remembering resilience, bringing in evoking the names of those that have passed on, our immediate relatives and the ancestors. And the ancestors we're everything. We're the dream of the ancestors. And this practice, I've heard my mother say, and I agree 100%, that my grandmother, it wasn't just a practice, it was an obligation to remember the ancestors, that remembering them brought them into our lives, and we carry their stories, we carry the spirit, their resilience, their creativity, the resourcefulness. And displaying an altar is a practice of gratitude, and love. It's, in throughout Mexico, there's many cultures, groups that, build their altars in different ways. But one common thing is, the ofrendas of flowers and food. As my mom said, the moles, the fruit, the bounty of the harvest is brought in. It's look what you taught us. Here we are being grateful because of you, we know this. Because of you, we survive. We have this knowledge. And that's a big, big part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so fascinating. What a fascinating story. It takes me back to me living in Trinidad and Tobago as a little boy. And we didn't have, well, it wasn't called Dia de los Muertos because we don't speak Spanish, but it's All Souls Day. It's the day after All Saints Day. And it was exciting because for those of us that were Catholic, you could almost get the day off. Almost. You could almost get the day off because you had to prepare to go to the cemetery. Just as I was listening to the story, it's just like it's bringing back so many like fragrant memories of going to the cemetery. And my mother would pack the car with candles, flowers, whatever was necessary. And we had to go to 2 or 3 different cemeteries because there was one cemetery that was for my mother's family, and then another cemetery for my father's family. And we would pack up, and it was exciting for us as children because one, it was, you're getting a little time off from school. That's one. But it was exciting because you didn't get to go to the cemetery very often. And then it was all the singing and all the praying and of course the candles. That was exciting for us. Like you'd light up the graves, each grave. And what was so touching about what Ofelia just expressed was the fact that this particular grave that you were attending to was not necessarily one of your ancestors, but this whole idea of communal effort. If it were communal grieving, communal praying, communal everything, that it didn't matter. For us, what mattered was it was a lesson in reading. We would walk around, we would run around, like we had that thing too, you couldn't climb on the headstones. We couldn't climb on the headstones. That's so interesting. But for my brother and I, we would decide how old that person was when they passed away. Oh my gosh, that was a baby. Oh my goodness, oh, she was really old. Like that. And then of course there were those that you couldn't understand. Those that were written in Chinese or Portuguese or Spanish that we couldn't understand, or had Jewish, had Arabic and or Hebrew letters that you couldn't understand, because a part of one of the cemeteries, there's a private, a certain part that's walled off for the Jewish people. And so to hear that coming, in East LA, like 5,000 miles away from where I am living, to hear that as part of this community effort to honor any ancestor, anyone that has moved on, it doesn't matter. They've moved from this life to the other. And as the French would say, c'est tout. It is enough. That's what it is. And so this really is astounding as I listen to it, because it was really exciting. And my father would always have like a bottle of rum or something that he would put on that grave, like, oh, it was my father. Oh, oh, like put that rum in there. You had to do that. And so it's just astounding how we reconcile, how we support, how community moves to recognize ancestral legacy. And that's just so very, 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 very important as we move along in this lifetime.
Eccomi qua.
Ah, here she is, interrupting.
Michael, you said something so beautiful about why ceremony is healing, and you said you do not bear it alone.
No, you do not.
This is a year where we had death without Shiva, deaths without gathering.
Yes.
There's no feasts this summer that I usually go to for St. Rocco, St. Anne.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask you, Michael, to tell us what Gelade is and Juve and Igungun, and let us see some of the costumes you're talking about.
Certainly.
And then we're going to see more of the altars, the massive altars in the cities that the Esparzas have made on a grand scale. Okay, Michael, wait, let me throw you the ball, Michael.
Okay. Ready.
Let's see what it turns into. All right,
Yes.
Here it comes.
Oh my goodness, it's a crystal ball. Am I going to send it now? Do I send it on?
No, you're going to tell us right now. And Eva's going to show some
ready
slides.
to send this
Tell
on.
us about Gelade and the vagina of the earth.
It's important.
Let's dive in.
That we understand that, and as Ofelia was speaking, like you said, so poignantly about gathering, and I too lost my father inside of this whole COVID, and he was 2,000 miles away. I could not travel to be there with my family, and even the funeral in and of itself, they had 4 people. It was just stark, but also a reminder that funerals are for the living. That's one, that funerals are for the living, and it's really not for the dead. It really is for the living, that we come together. And that's what I missed. I missed mourning with my friends. I missed mourning with my family and hugging them and saying, oh my gosh, she's got so big, or he's got so tall. Where are you living now? All those things that tie these threads of our fabric together. And in the Yoruba tradition, of which I am an initiate, is Egungun. And the Yoruba are wonderful storytellers. You will understand why I'm a storyteller. And the idea of these fabulously decorated cloths. You're going to see on the screen some examples of a gungung masquerade. These bodies are completely shrouded in fabric. Some of the fabric, or in fact, in this particular case, all of the fabric is heavily detailed sequins, shells, etc., and other ritual pieces. And actually, some of them may have horns from animals attached to them as well. Some may have straw, more natural organic fabric, but a lot of them are generally pieces of fabric. And these pieces of fabric are donated by the community to the Egungun society, so that it is an idea of shared communal ancestral legacy. No one mourns alone. No one is in this space alone. And so as someone is passed on, the family donates fabric to the Egungun society, and they are then attached to those structures. So that which no longer serves, those are the oldest pieces of fabric, fall away, and they are replaced by the newer fabric, so that we're constantly fertilizing the structure with new fabric. As you can see, most of it is heavily decorated, lots of beading, lots of sequins, mirrors. And if you look at this one in particular on the left, and my screen is on the left, it's edged in red. And it reminds us that these, no matter how much we are comforted in death, as you can see, the zigzag pattern it's almost like the alligator's teeth, that death tears, that death removes some personage from one point of living to another point of living. And therefore that describes the liminal space, these red, ragged edges of fabric that are edgy. And so when we think of Egungun Master, we think it's edgy because it's inviting us to inhabit a space of little light or lesser light than the sun would be. So oftentimes it's the time between dusk and night, or dawn, right at the dawn. And in this one, you're seeing younger, as you can see, younger Gelede, Egungun masqueraders here. And Egungun society is one that you are initiated to. Oftentimes it runs in families, but you are initiated to it, and it is not gendered. The only thing that's gendered is generally all the Egungun dancers, the masquerade dancers, are male, but Egungun society is for all. And the donations continue, sacrifices, etc., are done actually to the costumes, so that when you don the costume, you speak for your community. You speak for and about, and you advocate for your community. This is in New York, Brooklyn, actually on Fulton Street. You're seeing here these young Egungun masquerade dancers right here. And the ones before we saw on the earth was Nigeria. And you see there sometimes wooden pieces on the head, but also, and you're also covered. So no one really knows who actually dances the masquerade unless you tell. You're covered. So any points of being on the hand, rings or otherwise, are completely covered, so that no one knows the identity of the masquerader, except if the masquerader comes to your home and then they sit and then they are feasted. Because what they're doing is that they are bringing messages from the ancestors to the community, constantly bringing messages. You need to do this. Your child is this. If you are to do well, this is what you need to do. Boom, 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 boom. And so there's a constant communication. For even the word Egungun does not mean dead. It just means the ones that are in a village far away that we may no longer see. We can speak to them via prayers and supplication.
Michael, that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Let's pass the ball. Throw that crystal ball to Ofelia. I want to see your walking. I want to see the walking altar.
Careful that it doesn't break. Ah, it's coming. Ah!
Oh, it's a mango.
Oh my goodness. Transformation. Transformation. That's
Oh.
Ofelia, tell us about the 3 deaths and let us see the walking altar.
Okay.
And then we'll see some images of your Grant Park and your home altars.
Well,
Rosanna, can you get the headdress?
Yeah, I'm getting it right now.
Let's do it.
well, my mother always said, I don't know where she heard it, but this is what she told me, and it's something that I've carried with me all the years that I've been doing altars with Rosanna and the rest of my children. And she said that we all suffer 3 deaths, and that the first death is the day that we give our last breath, the day that we die. And the second death is the day that we're buried, never to be seen on the face of the earth again. And the third, but the most dreaded death of all, is to be forgotten. And I always say that that's the essence of the work of making altars for my family and I. And it's actually creating a sacred space, because we have the intention of evoking the souls of our ancestors, of our family. And so Rosanna will tell you how she has stated it so beautifully about the bridging of the generations, because for me and the work that I do today, my intent is to honor honoring my great grandmother, Mama Pola. And this was a walking altar. It was a costume that I wore and I walked with it. And it has I always have an arch on the altars. My mother would say that is the gateway, the portal to invite the soul to come and partake of its ofrenda, of its offering at the altar. And in a community altar, we invite people to bring an ofrenda, photographs, or any mementos, flowers, food, to add to the community altar for everyone. And the work that we're doing today has been doing it for almost 40 years. But I have to tell you though, in East LA or in the United States, it wasn't practiced like we're practicing today. My mother had her little home altar, very humble. Like I imagine that many families had them, people who came from Mexico, from a village where it was practiced this way. But even within the Catholic Church, the altars were on All Saints Day and All Souls Day. But this tradition, the way that we're celebrating with altars, it comes really from an indigenous roots that is, a millennium of years where it started. The ancient Mexicans didn't have a word for it. There was no heaven or hell, and they didn't say that people died, that was the end of their life. It was, they considered death as another phase of their life. And so people there was designated for special places. For instance, warriors who died in battle went to a certain space, or women who died in childbirth, or people who died in a very horrible, tragic death. It was believed that they came back to visit us during the days of the dead, which was more than 2 days, as butterflies, as monarch butterflies, and or hummingbirds. And so the hummingbird and the butterfly are, are symbolic of transition, of transformation, of resilience to, and even resistance. And tell them about the generation thing.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
and also we're going to see your big scale, how you took home altars and now you're in Grant Park. Tell us about, and then Molly, I'll tag team you in to come and talk about social justice.
Yeah.
Let's see those altars, Eva.
So here we are a year later in this COVID-19 pandemic. And last year, we had, as we all had, to transition from working in the office or your studio or wherever you were. For us, it was our studio. And we started working from home and having these conversations about, the families that have passed on. And later on last year, my mom lost her sister, Chilena Evangeline Jaques, and in September, her brother, my uncle Rudy, and his wife, who were in their 90s, and they left like 10 days apart from each other. They didn't have COVID, but they were, they ended up being hospitalized, and in those spaces is where they gave up their spirit. And we still haven't had that burial, that ceremony. So in the beginning of the pandemic, we created this altar as a response to the pandemic. And we have ancestors on this altar, but we also have all of our family members. And the intention of this piece was to be a portal of love and healing, to be there. And every time we come into the room, we just, say a prayer and send love and healing vibrations to everybody so that they are protected and that they know that we love them. And so that was very cathartic for us, you know, and for my mom, because they couldn't come visit mom. I live here with her, but my siblings, remember, I have 9, but there's 9 of us. And it just being separated from mom was really hard. So this was the connection that we created. And then came Mother's Day. And my sister Jacqueline had the idea of honoring mothers that passed due to COVID. And so at that point, she was able to find these photos, and they're from all over the country, that, you know, it's just a small group, but it was a representation of all the women, all the mothers that left behind their families, their children, their grandchildren. And we had it outside in the front yard, and my siblings came in their cars, and we, you know, over the gate, we communed together from a distance, but we were still able to connect because of the altar, because of these practices. And this one is the big altar we created. It's called Memorial of Our Resilience. And it was, you know, we invited the community, the city, to come and bring photographs. This is the day it was completed. And it's a big piece. It's about 24 feet wide and about 15, 16 feet deep and another 14 feet tall. And you see City Hall in the background. And, you know, these are monumental pieces. This practice has evolved from, you know, something on my corner furniture here to big public pieces. And it has become so important every year here in East LA. It's, you know, in the whole US, everybody is partaking in this practice, but we make sure that this practice is kept in a traditional format. And the main pieces that you see, those big arches in the back, are made with these paper flowers that we create by hand. And this is where community comes in. You know, that's a lot of work, all those flowers, but we get together. It started out with my brothers and sisters and my mom, my grandmother, and that's where the storytelling came from, the oral tradition of telling the stories. And so, you know, you're manipulating the paper, you're folding it, and meanwhile you're hearing these stories, and we're sharing about, you know, their plight, their struggles, you know, all of it. And so that essence is in these flowers, and our essence is in the flowers. And somebody asked, do we keep the altars from year to year? That all the altars are different, but the components, especially the arches, they carry flowers from the year before, 10 years before. My dad used to make flowers, and we kept those flowers that he made as long as we could. He died in 1991. Well, he left us in 1991. But that essence of his hands, his presence was in many of those arches that we created throughout the years. So everything is intentional. Everything in one way or another. This bird, this, you know, object, where did it come from? Or maybe it wasn't gifted from an ancestor, but we picked it up because it reminds me of my aunts. You know, everything is intentional.
And I just to give you a little bit of the history for celebrating Day of the Dead as it is today. It began at Self-Help Graphics, an art organization founded by Sister Karen Bocalero, a Franciscan nun who was an artist and who wanted to create an event that would bring the community together. It was right at, so this is the part of that, how the altars in East LA began with resistance and social justice, because at that time the Chicano moratorium had occurred, protests against the Vietnam War and other things that the community was demanding. And so she felt that there was a tragedy at that event. A Mexican American journalist was killed by the sheriffs. And so as a kind of healing and just bringing together, she learned about Day of the Dead. In Mexico, it's a community effort where everybody participates in one way or another and people come together. And so she started this in the garage where she lived in East LA. And then it just grew, and she's engaged. It was actually also for artists because she wanted to be art to have some community input. And so that's where it began in 1973. I came on to self-graphics 1979 in my neighborhood, and it has grown. And I'm very pleased that I have been involved in this tradition, this celebration, because it has informed the community about this tradition. It's rooted in love. It's in community. It's in honoring, and it's also about your ancestors. And I think and I always say that what a legacy for all of us to celebrate our ancestors in this way. And it's a legacy of love to be remembered and cherished even after death, but also to bring the community together in this universal concept of honoring our loved ones. And so it's become a lifetime work for me and my family. My children are all altaristas now. And other people are doing altars, and it just has grown. But it's a wonderful way to celebrate not just our community or our cultural traditions, because it fits everyone. It's a universal concept that we passing on to everyone.
I wanted to ask you, all three of you, I know that we've mentioned social justice a few times, and that's so important and imbued in the work that all three of you do. And in addition to honoring ancestors and creating space for community to come together, it strikes me that both the making of altars as a communal practice and Juvet and all the different traditions that we've talked about are also a way of letting the world know that you're here, that this is where you live, that this is your place, that this is a place where you belong. It also provides people with a sense of belonging, not only in the present, but in looking back to the past, to the present, to the future, that continuum. And I think that's really powerful and potent part of the work that you do. Is it's a way of marking existence and marking identity and saying we have a right to be here, and we are here, and we are us. And it strikes me that certainly in the last year that has been very hard to do because we haven't been able to be together in public space. But over the last several years, there have been so many ways that coming together has been so necessary, from all of the protests that took to the street after the murder of George Floyd, to protests against detention centers at the border, to protests, around all kinds of state-sanctioned violence and bans on immigration, and on attacks on people's bodies and identities, self-proclaimed identities. And the traditions that you're talking about are such powerful ways of expressing presence and resilience and resistance. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that and some of the work that you've done in that way.
Certainly, if I may, when you mention Juve, you come to what I would call an epitome of what is known as resistance. Juve marks the time, that liminal space, the time between actual sunrise and dawn. It's just before the dawn. And the word Juve is from the French, j'ouvert, which means I am opening. So it's the opening of the day. And it is a time of addressing communities' ills or congratulating communities' wonders and beauty. And so it is a time where you can flip the society on its head, and that which is in charge becomes subservient, and that which is subservient becomes in charge. And you have the ability to freely speak your mind. It is also the function of traditional masquerade, like Gelede, when something is wrong, when something's not so right with our communities. Both Yoruba, Igbo, Congo have ways of addressing via masquerade. And it is the idea that you are shining a spotlight very suddenly without fear of recrimination on what is going on. And so, for example, we have the baby doll, as you can see here with the woman holding the baby and the oversized bottle, that in its own way, though comedic, addresses the idea of children having children. Therefore, the idea of rape, the idea of statutory rape. And so this woman is looking for the father of a child, and everyone in every male in the crowd is a target. And some people have viewed this masquerade character as victim, but she is not actually. She has been a victim, but during that Juve time, she shines the light, and she has that power to step into the light and point a finger at the offender. You are the daddy of this child, therefore I need money for you to for this child to be taken care of. You know, and it is done ad lib. It is done constantly throughout the whole Juve celebration. You have, at one point, you see here, the seated character on the left is the Dame Lorraine. And the Dame Lorraine speaks to the African idea of woman of the marketplace, the wealthy woman. So she is big. She has big breasts. She has big buttocks. She is large. She is big. She is larger than life. She is sophisticated. She is powerful. She is the woman of the market. Though, in a way, she's also pointing out in the silhouette, when you look at it carefully, in part, it is also satirizing the female in the colonial mistress. Interestingly enough, this particular character of Dame Lorraine, was originally played and danced by men only. And that pulls itself out of the Gelede tradition of the southwestern Nigeria, of Gelede tradition. That idea, the word Gelede, it's in and of itself means stroking, or to stroke the vagina, or to soothe the vagina. For the idea is that this earth is female, and the slit of the vagina we have come out of is the same slit that we are going to pass through in order to attain the realm of the ancestors, which is the grave. So the vagina is both womb and grave. And so it is very, very interesting that we've moved on so that quite a few of the Dame Lorraine characters are actually played by women. Not only, but there are several, you know, a lot of them are played by women. It's in Trinidad in particular. But you see that idea of honoring. And here you see another Dame Lorraine. Here's the Dame Lorraine in white. It's played by a man. Oversized breasts. Karen on the left. These are two members of my company, by the way, in part of the Juve competition, the Juve parade. The one on white is Andy Nappy Saunders. He's on this. And the other one is Karen Herbert. And so you see the idea of the very large woman, the woman that takes up space, the woman of authority, the woman who is in charge of the marketplace, that large and in charge woman. And so this whole idea of masquerade is really to address those ills. Here we have, in this time and space, Kamala Harris, who can be seen as the Dame Lorraine of the White House. She is large and in charge. And it was very interesting that the Babalawos in Nigeria last year said in June that this coming year, 20 to 21, women will achieve that which men have not achieved in many a millennia. And so when Joe Biden was choosing a running mate, and I realized it would be Kamala Harris, I said, aha, the Babalawos, Ifa does not lie, and then, of course, here it is. We have Kamala Harris, first female vice president, in large and in charge, that woman. And so when we think of Gilede and we think of soothing the vagina, that idea that the woman's body is a sacred space, a sacred place. Here we have a young Gilede dancer. And again, in Gilede, much like Dame Lorraine, I'm going reverse now, Gilede masqueraders and the Gilede masquerade figures are danced by men. It is the ultimate homage to woman. I am becoming you because I love you so much. I am honoring you so much because I understand that you are the symbol of fertility. You see the enlarged stomach. You see the prominent breasts. You see the coiffures, the hairstyles that Nigerian, that African, so many Western African women display, elaborate. And the more elaborate is the more money and the more power that you have. So the headdress is very, 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 very important. There is a song that we sing in Trinidad. My mother, whose stomach is wide and capacious. Because if it is from her we came, and to her we shall return, the billions of people that inhabit the earth at this point will all return to that place. And so we see this idea of Gelede, this prominent, big, buxom woman in African masquerade. And these Gelede masquerade, again, run in families. There are times that they come out, but of course it is propitiating the forces that be so that our communities have enough rain, that we have a good crop, that our women give birth easily and well, and that they do so many times over without problems. And so you see that this Gelede masquerade is then taken through, much like Juve, it goes through the community. It surrounds the community with this idea of protection, but also the idea of fecundity. The whole idea of fecundity and fertility that is so important to African and so many traditional societies. And that Babalawos will say to you, when a woman comes that is pregnant, we pray that the Orisha, which are the deities, fashion for us a good work. And so we have that whole idea of addressing that which is not so good. We have that opportunity in masquerade, in Juve, in Gelede, in Egungun, however, to address those ills.
So beautiful.
Or those missteps.
I'd like to hear Ofelia respond to all that. Being the mother of 9.
The mother of 9, or Yah, Yansa, Shihuto.
And yeah, and also about Molly's, question about your collaboration in community and on the border.
Well, one of the things that altars today have evolved in our community, but all over the nation, and I say wherever there's Mexican people, or you'll have Day of the Dead celebrations. That's I've been finding out. But one of the things that has been mentioned, but the important thing is bringing us together as community and passing on the stories of our ancestors, and how important that we've already talked about, how important it is, this connection to our ancestors, especially for people of color who are present here, and their place in this country and anywhere in the world, that they have roots, that they have traditions, that we have roots, we have traditions, we have important contributions, that we have a history that is important to all the world. And so sometimes people of color are not regarded as in those lights. So it's a way, I think, for Day of the Dead, especially, we're sharing it with the rest of the world. But as I said, it fits everyone because of this legacy of remembrance and honoring and love. We have done many altars that address awareness to social justice, to deaths that have been horrible things that have been due to other wars or racism. I choose to the altars that I make for people who have died in those situations. I choose to celebrate their life, not the way that they died, but the way they were loved by their family, if they were mothers or fathers or sisters or aunts or children, somebody's best friend, the way the family would greet them in inviting them to come and share a meal, to be remembered, the way they would be, it would be a home altar. But yet drawing attention to an awareness of the situation that brought their death on, like the women in Juarez who were over 300 by the time we did the first altar I did in 2002, that were missing or murdered. And so many people have done altars to honor them. And it brings awareness to the injustice of not bringing the perpetrators to justice, and that they were somebody, they meant something they were loved by somebody, and also to children who have collateral damage, died in wars. We've done altars for we did one that I really loved because it raised my own awareness of defenders of Mother Earth, people who have been, actually they're martyrs for defending their ancestral lands, for the resources of their land, against big conglomerates who come in mining and in lumbering and in water rights. And I mean, there's so much that I want to celebrate them so that everyone knows about them and raise the awareness and consciousness for them to do something, to join together all over the world, to do something to right these wrongs. But in a way, like I said, that honoring them in a way that is respectful, and that they are loved by someone, by all of us. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ofelia. It's so hard to get to forgiveness and jubilation, when from anger. Listen, there's a lot of people that want to join the discussion, so I'm going to call in some audience members, and we'll start with the Sicilian American author Edvige Junta. Junta, you out there? And then some of Michael's guests are here, so we'll have them after Edvige. So if you have questions, keep them coming in the chat, or if you have something to say, there she is. Ciao, Edvige.
Hi. Wow, this is so wonderful. I just have so much going on in my head and in my heart right now. And I come from Sicily, and on my island, La Festa dei Morti, the Feast of the Dead, is very important. And the night between November 1st and November 2nd, the dead bring gifts to the children. Sugar dolls, beautifully decorated sugar dolls, marzipan, fruits, and toys. And so in my childhood, I always waited for the gifts of the dead. And my town during ancient Greek times was at the practice of the cult of Demeter and Persephone. And Persephone is the goddess. She's not just a goddess of the underworld. She's the goddess who knows how to travel back and forth between the world of the living and the dead. And we're always so profoundly connected with the dead. There is a Sicilian nursery rhyme, because all these feasts go back to pre-Christian times. So they're very, very old. So there is this old Sicilian nursery rhyme. Let me see if I can remember. They say, Arni Santi, più sogno uno e viatri siate tanti, mindra che sogno, in trasumuno di guai, cosi di murti mittimini assai. Which means, holy souls, I am one and you are so many. While I am in this world full of troubles, leave me many gifts of the dead. And I think, the ancestors, they're benevolent ancestors, and, they leave us the gifts. But I think sometimes, many of us have complicated ancestors. And the relationship is not so easy. And finding a way of connecting with those ancestors, with those complicated ancestors, I think it's an important journey. So I just want to read a very, very little piece I wrote for my paternal grandmother, who was not an easy woman, with whom I did not have a very good relationship. And I was given the opportunity through a gift of a cousin to listen to a recording of her voice decades after she died. Candles, burn sage, open windows, photos of my good dead strategically placed on my desk for protection. I am preparing to listen to the only recording of Concetta Tignino, widow of Diego Giunta, mother of Rocco, Vincenzo, Remigio, and Edvige, grandmother who didn't dote on me or my siblings, left us nothing. I'm ready for her supernatural vengeance to unleash on me for bringing her this far. What I'm not ready for is to be charmed by the voice of this strange old woman, her wit, her pride, a recitation of his sepulchre, and to feel eager to sit at her table. So I think I'm gonna have to make an altar for Nonna Ciuzza. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and so much love.
Thank you, Edvige. So beautiful. I can't wait till we do the Tarantella all together.
Absolutely.
Okay, next up we have Stephen, one of Michael's folks. Michael, introduce Stephen.
Stephen Wilson is a member of my company, but he also has his own company, and we know him as Wolfman. Stephen talks with wolves. There he is.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to join in.
The First Nation peoples, and I just thought it would be wonderful that he connects, especially with Ofelia and Rosanna, and also shares some of his tradition as he knows it.
Greetings, everyone. Good evening. Thank you again for allowing me to take part of this. It's really, really great listening to everybody's stories and understanding of the various altars. As Michael said, my name is Wolf, or Talk to Wolves. I'm from the people from the mountains, which we know as the Cherokees or the Selagese. Originally, we called the people from the mountains. And understanding altars. And I was listening to all the various forms of altars and just wanted to, just give a little more input. That some altars are not meant to go for long distance. Some altars are meant just for the moment. And then some people then from that point, so I want people to really understand there's so many variations of altars and how it could be used. You got altars that, and I've been hearing about altars about death so much, but you also have to remember there are altars also for life.
Yes, we do.
So there are altars when a child is first being born, like in the Navajo tradition, they have sand work that they do on the ground as the baby's being born to protect that child. So they bring on the energies and everything else. Or if somebody is sick, they build altars to help heal that person. And once that person is healed, the altar gets dismantled because it was only meant for that moment. So I just know what a lot of people just understand various altars. And as one sister was saying, and I think it's quite interesting, some altars you just don't want to build for certain ancestors. I hate to say that. not all ancestors were good ones, but we do give, and we all know we have a few in each family. There are some rough ones, but there's just some that they have to move on to a different location, do their own work. So we have altars in that aspect as well. And I put in the statement that altars, and I love it when I'll call you grandma. We knew all the 9 children, the grandchildren, and all that. Nowadays, we will call you grandmother, to give honor to that. Great thing about altars is that as you're building those altars, it can be very easily transferred from one and then you have a keep of the next altar. So they keep building that throughout the years and decades. And we would take like a quilt, you put these things on a quilt so you remember that family member, and telling stories and everything else. So altars have so many various stuff to it to protect, as you said, for death. Some are short term, some are long term, some are generational. And as Michael was saying about on some of the deities, even in our native tradition, there are some dances, like in the Zuni tradition, the Kokopelli. Everybody knows it's the flute player, but actually he represents fertility. His cork is upward, which is the penis. And in their tradition, the men dance, but they act like women. So I'm like,
go too.
yeah, we're doing the drag queens all through the place, We're doing it all through the place. And that's to give honor to the women and everything else. As Michael said, in our tradition, Mother Earth, her vagina is the pathway. And I made a little cute comment, even through sex. That's why man feels he's in heaven, because they say that because of her spirit of the intake and what she does, she takes us to a spiritual level that's like into the ancestral world. She takes us there. That's why women are that's why women are so powerful in so many ways. And as you said, that the president now has like a whole women council, and he's going back to the old traditional ways where there were all women councils. But not just young women, these were elder women that went past their menopause. And now, because they said that once you go past your menopause, you no longer have the monthly distraction. So you are taking a break from the distraction. But even the power of when the women have their moon time or their period, there's so much about altars, that needs to really be taught. Because even when women with that have their moon time, they go to the moon lodge, there's altars for that. There's
Stephen,
so
if you put
much.
your phone number in the chat, you may get some phone calls, Stephen.
No problem. No
Listen,
problem at
that
all.
was you that we saw dancing, correct?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not. With Michael's group, I'm like a storyteller. I do the backup singing, and for any dancing that I do, it's in my native. I'm a traditional native dancer.
Okay.
Even though I do embrace some of the African traditions, the Ifa, part of the Ifa, who sits in my head is Ogun. Yemiya is my mother. So I honor that, and then and some other deities that go with it. Elokun, who's the part of the water with Yemiya, the deepness of it. So what's very unique about cultures today is the combination of altars, because it represents different backgrounds. So if you're part Mexican, if you're part Spanish or Dominican Republic or whatever, they have their own traditions. Like Michael said, in Trinidad with the Catholic, the Christianity, we have to help deal with it. We've combined the traditions of some of it to build the altars the best way we can, because we want to honor we don't honor part because you don't honor part of your body. You honor all of who you are.
Thank you, Stephen. I got to get Ofelia on a plane to Chicago. So let me.
Well, thank you. I didn't mean to take all your time,
I
but thank you
love
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up, Rosanna, someone from your world. I think we have Dolores. Can you call Dolores and introduce her?
Hey, Dolores, can you get on here? I saw your name on the list. Are you there, Dolores? Well, I wanted to
Tell us about her. She'll pop up in a second.
yeah, I wanted to respond to Stephen about altars, and of course I agree 100%. And I also wanted to say that, you know, the altar is the structure, the temple, like, you know, we can call it so many things, but overall the practice is the ofrenda, the offering, you know, in any form. You know, whether it's the dancers that Michael is bringing forward to our attention, those are all in my, you know, in our language is an ofrenda, the offering, the essence, the gratitude, the love, and for the baby, you know, all everything that can be honored is honored in the altar or the ofrenda, the offering. So I just really super appreciate all that input. It was beautiful. Hey, Dolores, can you hear? And
Dolores, where are you, Dolores? Are you coming?
Dolores Chavez. Turn
All right,
on. Turn
Called her
on.
out. You called her out.
maybe she needs a minute. Well, let's get Gabriella Belfilio here. And then Dolores, when you get your camera on, just put it on and we're here for you. Gabriella, vieni qua. Ciao.
Ciao. Hello. I see Dolores's name. Do you want me to wait for her?
No,
or-
no, go ahead. When she gets her camera ready, she'll come.
Sure. My altar is the housewife altar, doing laundry. No. An amazing thing happened during this. When Ofelia and Rosanna were talking, Annie asked me to read a poem tonight, and so I was prepared to read a poem. But when Ofelia and Rosanna were talking, at one moment you mentioned how monarch butterflies come back, and I lost my daughter, which is a huge thing. And when I just, not from any tradition, but from my own whim, I think of, when I see white butterflies, I think of her being with me. And so I was like, okay, well, what are these white butterflies called? Oh, you can't really see. So I was just, to share with you, I looked it up, and I hit Instagram by mistake, right? The button, the social media button. And a friend of mine at that very moment was posting a white butterfly. So it was this very magical moment. The poem I'm going to read tonight is dedicated to my daughter.
And tell us all her full name.
Kali Antonia Belfilio Suarez. It's called Scattering. Here bone and here skin. No teeth in these ashes. You didn't have time to grow that sharp bite for this world. Here lips and here the heels of your tiny feet that never touched the earth. I peeked under the baby blanket they wrapped you in, saw you raw and naked, but I can barely remember how I dreamed of knowing your body, every crease, every mark, with still closer consideration than a lover gives. Here elbow and here knee. Here the snake of your intestines that never digested even the mother's milk my body leaked those first miserable weeks, my breast swollen with need of your suck. Here skull and eye sockets, here iris and cornea, here narrow 10 perfect fingers and 10 nails that never scratched. In one of the few photographs of you, I am holding your hand and it looks like you're squeezing back. Here spleen, here liver and kidney, here navel, here lungs, here heart, both yours and mine. Thank you.
Ofelia, can you respond to Gabriella? What do you say about the unborn or the born and babies who pass so young?
Well, I know that building an altar for me and the losses that I've are a pathway to healing, but of gratitude, of having that moment of love and miracle in your life. And I guess it comes with, you know, I know it must not be easy, but I think that's maybe a consolation that her spirit lives forever. You know, I don't know if you heard that as long as, you know, you keep her alive in your memory and pass on her stories, that her story is heard, that she's never gone. She's always with you.
Thank you, Ophelia. And it was a testament of that when I had this butterfly moment it was inspired by you and Rosanna talking. So thank you for sharing. It was a beautiful night, and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Well, remember Kali Antonia forever, Gabrielle.
Grazie.
Okay. Rosanna, I think Dolores came back in from walking the dog.
Hey, Dolores, turn on your camera.
Oh my God.
There she is.
No, I was outside in the garden and the dog, one of my elder dog can't get back up and she got in there. And so I was like, oh, let me just go run out for a moment. And then I was coming up, I'm hearing Dolores. I'm like, what is going on?
Where's your dog?
What a blessing to have you guys shout out my name. So, hello.
Do you have any feedback, comment, response to the presentation or what we were talking about?
Oh, you know, the act of, you know, calling in our ancestors and our familiars is so needed right now, as has always been. And so I you know, just hearing that this beautiful voices of people are sharing those practices, sharing those ideas of how do we maintain that connection to our spirits who visit us constantly and frequently, you know, whether we're asleep or not. So that you know, I find it that I build altars throughout my house, so that there is the one in the corner at the back door for my neighbors, right? There's the ancestor one that, you know, likes to look at TV. There's, you know, my separate one just for the crystal people and for the river people who used to live, you know, by the side of the house. And I think even just in those simple offerings, so many folks that you carry it with you, right? That even a piece of jewelry from someone who has passed, who gifted to you before they passed, is an item of a small altar, you know, a small offering that I carry with me or I wear with me on a certain day or a certain time, and that brings me to that. So, you know, the two of you, I've been writing your name, the two of yours names over and over as we look at, you know, spaces from, you know, looking at Canoga Park and things like that. So I find the two of you are my neighborhood mentors, you know, that are just right there constantly in my mind, thinking about how would you guys approach something? How would the two of you, in your quietness, in your building of things, sit back and go, okay, okay, and then you just lead me on. So it's I'm really, you know, I'm really grateful, you know, to learn from both of you and how we do that. So. And I ran and put on lipstick before I got on, so, you know.
Good job. Good job. Nicole.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Steve.
Hi. Yeah, so I wanted to go back, ask Michael, because I didn't quite catch it when you talked about it before the show, about the tear in the fabric.
Just so that we could contextualize the deity or Yah, it means she who tore, and she rules the path to life, to this existence, and she rules the path out of it. Because her element is air, and air is the only element that you cannot see. You can only feel. So at the end of one of the prayer songs to Oya, it says, she guards the road into the world and guards the road to heaven. Meaning the ancestral realm, the place from which we came that we will return to. And the idea of tearing is the idea of severing, that she tears, as uncomfortable as it is to us. Her job, she is the warrior, she is the female warrior. She tears at that point so that we cannot enter into the realm of the ancestors until she has approved us. So she has to make a demarcation, and that's why those red pieces on Egungun pieces are put there. They demarcate sacred space. It is saying, yes, ancestors are in and out of us, but however, there is a line. And she tears that cloth. She tears us out of this existence. And so often we think of her as a violent deity, but it is just part of the job of this woman to do that, because she is called the mother of transformation. She who wears the mask of transformation. And we know, those of us that have observed our loved ones or friends moving into that realm of ancestor, there are points at which they fight. They are fighting for breath. The breath is being taken from them because she represents air. So she's taking that breath to return it to the creator from whence it came, leaving the cosmos. So it is, it's very important that we understand that she's not violent for violence sake, but is a function. It is oftentimes a function that people do not want to have. It is, she claims that breath out of us and takes it back to the creator, Olodumare, as the Yoruba would say, Olodumare, the owner of the breath, the owner of life. And so oftentimes people are afraid when you mention Oya, because she grabs the buffalo by the horns and she faces life. She helps us to face life very clearly and definitively. And that's why it is important that we honor, because I didn't, as a child, the Catholic tradition, they used to have us saying this chant that you pray for a good death. And I would be like, good death? Like, what the hell is a good death? Like, death is death. Like, you know, as I mature and as I'm moving towards that space, I think I'm beginning to understand And what a good death means. I don't want to die by COVID. You know what I'm saying? I am going to die, and the breath will be taken out of me. But I am beginning to understand this concept of a good death. And for me, it just means complete surrender to what has created me. It is a complete surrender, because this divinity that has created me is now saying, come home. And I can no longer hold on to this world. And therefore, if it is that my function is done, because I made a promise to the Creator before I came, that I would accomplish X, Y, da, 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 da. Once Z is arrived, there's no A prime, like we do in mathematics. After Z, it's done. Go, you gotta go. And so we're gonna escape this body into home. And so it's important that we understand, oh yeah, she who stands at that point of the French would say the demi-monde, that place of half light and half dark that takes us to the other place. And without her stamping your passport, she's called the customs officer of the multitudes, the mother of nine.
Whoa, getting through customs is hard.
Yes, yes it is.
So we're gonna do three things.
Oh.
We're gonna spotlight Ofelia for an affirmation. Then we're gonna promote everyone in the audience to be seen. If you brought a little altar piece, we're gonna take a snapshot to make a group altar, if you have a photo of an ancestor or something to hold up. And then whoever needs to leave, leave. And if you want to stay, we'll keep the room open a little bit. Michael, we could talk all night, so we don't have to go to Chicago. And we didn't even get to honor Michael, and I'd like to.
I'm good.
Cheryl and what's behind you. So we'll do that in the after the affirmation. Okay, let's spotlight Ofelia. There she is. Let's hear the affirmation for tonight, please.
But before you say something, I wanted to respond to Michael and what you just shared. And I wrote it in the chat, but it just gave me this vision of being in a pool and you're up against the wall and you push off. It's like, just let's go. It's a willing, intentional moving on to the next place, as how I see you describing a good death.
Good.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Well, I want to say that the practice, the devotion or the obligation for me of creating altars, the one specifically for our ancestors, our loved ones, is that we're connecting the altars. The ofrenda connects the living with the death, and it bridges generations. I don't know if I said that already, and it bridges cultures. And so that connection is what creates our own resilience, our own sustainability to appreciate life that we have now and to share it with beautifully with others. And I think that's what you could take away from this practice of ofrendas, of altar making. And as Steve said before, it doesn't have to be just for the dead. It's for our loved ones. It's an invocation to a world of peace, a world of harmony, a world of justice. And so you can make an altar and offer it to those things, and we'll be okay.
Thank you, Ofelia.
Rosanna, could you say something too?
No, I just want everybody to take a breath. We can take a breath together. Being in community is everything. It's the connection that we were forced into this. into this way of living for a while, and it really helped us appreciate the presence of our friends and our family and just everyone in the world. And so if we could just breathe together again and just let it out with gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosanna and Ofelia. And I'll give all our birthday love to Aunt Mickey in Chicago.
Thank you.
Okay, Eva, let's promote everyone in the audience so everyone can be visible as a community. And if you've brought something like a photo of an ancestor, you could hold it up and Eva will take a group photo.
It's beautiful.
It's going to take a few seconds for that.
I know her.
Who?
I know Isabel.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Okay, people are coming.
Beautiful.
Great. Yeah, if you have something, hold it up. I'm going to hold up my mother's. This is the Mount Carmel.
Oh,
Eva, you could take a few snapshots as people come. I know it takes a transition. And Michael, during this transition, can you tell us about Cheryl and show us the garment behind you?
Personally, I am actually wearing a garment that Cheryl wore. It's right here in this.
Hi, Cheryl.
And Cheryl is the founder of our company, Something Positive Incorporated. And Sean Rasmussen, who is my deputy director, is on this call right now. And we created, along with Cheryl before she passed, something called the Iconography series. And we were going to spotlight, first we started with all women. And so we created an exhibition of Cheryl's performance regalia. And this piece here is something that she would wear on stage to perform in. I called this particular jacket the Cloths of Heaven, and always beautifully bedazzled and sequined. And so this piece is here always at this point. It's not in storage anymore. It's supposed to be back, but I'm just loving it right now, right where it is. And so Cheryl is with us all the time. And there are some pictures Eva has up there that she'll put in the slide of the iconography series we did on Cheryl's work, on Cheryl's pieces. They were up at the Brooklyn Public Library, Flatbush branch, and they were also up at Medgavis College for 18 months. She was a professor there at some point, and we plan on doing it again. It was the very first showing was at her very close friend Ashake Bomani Glover. This is these pictures are by Stephen Wilson that you just heard speak. These are all Cheryl's, some of them. These are just a few of Cheryl's pieces, and this was curated by Sean Rasmussen, assisted by Cynthia Salandi. And the very first time we did it was these pictures are taken from the Brooklyn Public Library, and it was hosted by Maxine Alexander, who might be on the chat, not sure, but she might be here. She also afforded us the opportunity to display these pieces of Cheryl's in iconic way. These it's called the Iconography series. And so we focused on Cheryl. Our next one will be on Pearl Primus, and the following one will be on Nina Simone. These are taken at this one, and the silvery white is taken at Ashake's home. So Cheryl's best friend, Ashake Bomani Glover, at her home in Harlem. And this one here, the orange one, was taken at the library. All of these pieces that you've seen so far, these two in particular were created by Anthony Cox for Cheryl specifically for performance, and she wore them. She wore them.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, Eva, let's take a group, couple of altar snapshots, and Rosanna or Ofelia, could you just lead us to say presente to our ancestors? We'll do call and response, Ofelia. You can say it in-
Well, you invoke the name of your loved ones, and then we all say presente. So I don't know, do it all at once, I suppose? Yes. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Amado Esparza, presente. That means they're here with us.
Presente.
Present.
Present.
You all say that one, yes.
I was muted. Daryl Kevin Williams.
Okay, one more
Presente.
time. Well, she said all at once. Did you want do you have time for everyone to say their own?
Sure.
Okay, then-
Boom.
Let's try popcorn style.
okay. Yeah. Go. Well, I'm going to say Guadalupe Salazar, presente.
Presente.
Annie.
Presente.
There-
Rachele, my
Name.
mother, Giuseppe, my father, Rosa, my grandmother, Anna, Carmine, and Giuseppe, my grandparents, and all those that came before them.
Present.
Presente.
My nephew Charlie, who died too young this year, just a few months ago.
Presente.
Presente. Virginia Jean Saunders, my mother.
Present.
Presente. And my very dear friend pictured here is Daryl Kevin Williams. Presente.
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 My father, Moises Rodriguez.
Present.
Presente.
My nephew, Caleb Rasmussen, present.
Present.
Presente.
My mother, Shirley Zeitlin.
Present.
Presente.
My mother, Joyce Ekstrom, and my grandmother, Margaret Folk.
Present.
Presente.
My
stepmother,
Karen Frank, presente.
Present.
Presente.
Presente.
Very happy because I participated.
Eva,
My cousin Romy and my grandmother Louisa.
Present.
I'm so good. I'm so full. Oh, good. I have to just go to bed now.
okay, Molly,
I love it. It's so cool this evening. It's been a horrible week.
And my great grandparents, Kramer, and Carp, presented.
Present.
Presente.
Oh, no,
in New Orleans, Susan in New Orleans,
I'm just walking. You see?
Teresa Pena,
My mother, Alice Alvarez.
We will. Thank you.
Hey.
Presente.
Someone else cooks dinner. Where I'm at.
Present.
Can we just ask if you're
Yeah, I can't finish.
there's a bit of background noise.
Yeah,
I can't tell
we're
from
getting
where.
into the cacophony of Zoom. Valborg, who would you like
Yep.
to call out?
My mother, Helen Spletre, and
All right, have a good one.
my father, Lars Spletre.
Presente.
Isabel.
Ding.
Susan Story, you could turn on your microphone.
Oh my gosh.
I'd like to present my mother, Rachel Maltzman.
Presente.
Presente.
Phyllis and Michael,
My aunt, Carmela Landano Capello.
Presente.
Presente. Annie, I don't know why my video is not on, but I would like to call my maternal grandmother, Nunziatina Nuncibello Minasola.
Presente.
Presente.
my dear friend Leslie, who died to gun violence at the hands of her brother, Leslie Hershon.
Presente.
Presente.
Isabel Castro.
Presente.
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 Lucia, you could be next. I think we could hear you. Let's see. No, we can't hear you, Lucia. Okay, who else? I see JJ. Oh, is that Steph and JJ? Let's see who you have there. You have initials on your thing, so I was confused. Steph and JJ in Detroit.
My father, Peter Hillwood.
Presente.
Presente.
My maternal grandparents, Norbert and Lydia, the lovebirds.
Presente.
Beautiful. Lucia. No, we can't hear you. But hold the picture closer and we'll say presente. Presente.
Presente.
Yeah, Lucia, your microphone's off. You could give it another try. I can't turn it on. Anyone else? Feel free to speak.
Dolores Chavez, presenting my father, Manuel, his sister, Alice, Mary, and his brother, David Chavez. the Chavez brothers.
I wanted to honor my stepmother, Sharon Frank.
Presente.
Okay. Gabriella?
This is my good friend who almost to the day passed away, Michelle Williams.
Presente.
Presente.
Well, I have my whole holy card deck here. If we want to go through all the names, you know, there's a lot of them. Presente.
Presente.
You know, there's a lot. My mother kept this deck for years, so it goes back to the 1920s.
Oh. Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Here's Rachel Maltzman. Susie, you see? Presente. That's my aunt.
Presente.
That's Susie's mother. You see? Oh, look, she's got it too. Look at that. That's my cousin Susie. And this is Aunt Maria Marsico, my great aunt, who did not immigrate because of World War I. So she stayed in Acquaviva dell'Infanti. And instead, my grandmother Rose came, but Maria was supposed to come. And that's why I grew up in the Bronx instead of Maria's family, because of World War I. So Maria Marsico.
Presente.
I want to say,
do we have time to go through the whole deck?
my brother Rudolph Estrada and my sister Evangeline Hawkes, they both died last year. Presente.
Presente.
Okay, big love and thanks, everybody. Ofelia, I think we need one more affirmation so that people could say goodnight. And then if anyone wants to hang out and talk, I'll stay on for a while.
Well, I just want to wish everyone to stay healthy, to stay safe, to love one another, to help someone that you know, and to just be very, very considerate and compassionate. There are so many people out there who are going through so much. And most of all is take care of Mother Earth too.